Hello, this is Crosscraw releasing chapters 11 and 12 of Omori. I won't let him bite the next famer. Please like, comment, subscribe, and give me recommendations for stories you would like to listen to now. Let's begin. Chapter 11. Mari had been lying still for what felt like hours now. She wasn't exactly sure what she was supposed to be doing at the moment. Still, to feel the hectic stress and anxiety she felt building up all day melting away from her as the relief and tranquility settled it made her give a soft, comforting sigh. She wouldn't mind just staying here for a while to calm down a bit. After a while of just lying still and doing nothing, a shadow was eventually cast over her face. She gave a glance up to see Hikiko sitting on her knees while peering down at Mari. Hikiko and Mari gave each other contemplative looks, waiting around as if expecting the other to do something first. Knowing that she wasn't going to do anything until someone finally relents, Mari sighed and nodded in understanding. Hikiko nodded back as she stood up. By then, Mari had already vanished. Hikiko gave her own sigh of relief before looking around. Welcome to Bright Space. You have been living here for as long as you can remember. She was back in her safe haven, the bright endless void that stretches on forever, with only her personal belongings to keep her company. Mua was purring softly as she laid on her back, continuing her nap from last time. That silly kitty was always so lazy. Her toy piano was still broken, apparently. The lone piano key was as lonesome as ever until she looked around to try to find the rest. Her laptop was still in the same spot as she left it. No need to update the journal yet since she hasn't done anything today. The chair and long dangling rope were back in their original position. She'd need to make a new noose again when it was time to wake up. Well, looks like she has some free time on her hands. Let's go play around with Sunny and the others. Turning to the white door in the room, she stepped up and opened the door to visit the small playroom again. The sky was purple and the stars were out. It looked like today was going to be a beautiful day to play with her friends. In front of her, she spots three familiar faces gathered around playing a card game to pass the time. Wait. 3. The moment they spotted Hikiko entering the room, they all jumped up and came up to her in a flash with worried looks. Hikiko, there you are. Hiro cried out as he grabbed her hand. We've been looking everywhere for you. Yeah, you said you were only going to take a short walk around the picnic with Sunny, but then you both suddenly disappeared. Aubrey had hugged her in relief. We were all worried sick. Oh, Hikiko felt a bit overwhelmed at all this sudden concern and attention aimed at her. Before she did her best to clear everyone's worries away, I'm sorry guys. I didn't mean to make you all scared. I should have come back as soon as I could, but something came up. Something came up? Huh. She wasn't really sure what caused her to actually not come back in the first place. The three of us thought that you might show up again if we waited here long enough. But Basil said he was still going to go around to look for Sunny. Kel told her. Hikiko's thoughts paused as she became hyper-focused on what Kel had just said. Wait, you mean Sunny's not with you? Hikiko asked with a worried look. We thought he was with you, Kel stated. Oh no. Not again. What were they doing the last time Hikiko was here? She and Sunny were out taking a quick walk to stretch their legs, right? But then, something about curtains and remembering something scary. A boy coming to replace. All three of them began dragging a distracted Hikiko out to the exit with them, as Hiro urged, come on, Hikiko. If Sunny's not with you, then we should all start helping Basil search for Sunny too. He might be somewhere around here. Alright. Hikiko snapped out of her stupor and nodded resolutely, before taking charge of the group as they all followed behind her. If her little brother was missing, it was up to her to help find him. She won't stop until he's safe back in her arms again. Any questions she had would need to be figured out later. Any ideas where we should look for Sunny first? When was the last time you saw him? Hiro asked behind her. Thinking about it, she remembered, they had walked near the shores of the ocean. First, we get Basil to regroup with us. Then, we all head towards the beach. That was the last time I saw Sunny. Hikiko listed off. All right. Everyone quickly agreed as they followed Hikiko's lead. Omori was sitting on the shores by the ocean for what felt like hours now. Staring out at the vast sea in front of him, he slowly blinked before becoming aware of where he was. Taking a quick look around, he steadily recognized the area and found himself frowning. Big empty gray ocean in front, vast gray forest behind him, dark foreboding atmosphere. So, back here again, huh? The entrance to black space. Omori didn't even need to find any keys this time around. He just woke up in the middle of it all. This place, the opposite of white space, it was the dark black void that Omori would always shove all of his dark thoughts and unwanted memories into. It was the place where he hid the truth of Mari's death for so long. Back when Omori was still suppressing the truth, he would have no memory of this place each and every time he stepped foot in it. In his mind, all he wanted to focus on was to save his missing friend Basil and get out as quickly as possible. But then, the memories of everything would seep back into his mind. The longer he stayed here, the more he would remember. Eventually, he would realize that Basil didn't go missing after all. Omori had subconsciously put him here as punishment for somehow knowing the truth. Thus, Omori would then erase Basil by killing him in whatever gruesome way Omori could think of. Sometimes even he was surprised at how malicious his methods of murder could be. It would all be so that Omori would eventually ascend to his throne of red hands, forcing these hands to lead him back to neighbors' bedrooms so that he could reset headspace once more. Force everything to go back to normal. Bring Basil back to life. Erase the memories he had of black space. Suppress the truth further back into the depths of his mind. Pretend that everything was okay, up until Basil would somehow remember the truth again, forcing Omori to subconsciously send him back to black space. Thus, the search for his missing friend begins all over again. Over and over and over. For the last 4 entire years of his life. A cycle that never ends. Not until now. This was actually the first time he ever set foot in black space with all of his memories intact. Now that he was no longer suppressing the truth, he remembered where black space came from. He was the creator, the master of the realm, so to speak. A place he created to hide away everything that would cause him to remember anything related to Mari's death. Whether it was memories, inhabitants of headspace, or anything else that would get in his way to a peaceful life. Despite all the scary and unsettling things that resided here, everything was completely harmless as long as he was still Omori. Nothing here could physically hurt him. It still didn't stop Omori from being filled with dread and misery though. The more he suppressed black space, the more powerful it became. Like a spring being pushed against the wall before finally building up enough energy to bounce off and wreak havoc. If he woke up here by the entrance instead of in white space, then that must mean that black space has overtaken everything else now. No amount of suppressing the truth would ever push it back anymore. It was too powerful now. He still would have preferred white space, to be honest. Horizontal ellipsis. There would be no doors here this time around. Without anything to repress, everything in black space would no longer be locked away anymore. No doors. No keys to open them. No way out or in. Everything that was once in there has already escaped out to headspace. No access to doors means no access to the keys that reside in them. No keys mean no red door to appear. No red door means he can't access his throne of red hands. No access to the red hands means they can't lead him to the neighbor's bedroom. Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. There probably wouldn't be a point to do that anyway. Why reset the world if it didn't matter? Omori has already given up on hiding the truth away anymore. Headspace was nothing more than a distraction for Sunny so that he wouldn't be tortured by the guilt and suffering of it all. There was no need to be distracted anymore. Nothing he did matter. Hiding away the truth again will only cause further problems and further suffering. The better question would be to ask why he was still here. Why wake up near black space again? It wasn't like he had any unfinished business to do. He should have been dead by now, actually. The fall from the hospital roof should have killed him. He was never supposed to be back here again. Yet, here he was. What to do then? Lost in thought as always, dreamer. Omori widened his eyes as he recognized the voice appearing out of nowhere. Now that was a voice that he wasn't expecting to hear ever again. Popping out of the ocean in front of him, he saw the familiar face of an old imaginary friend, Abby. Or at least, the haunting form that she had been reduced to. Surprised to see me, old friend? Abby asked in a gentle tone. A little, yeah, Omori nodded, growing a bit cautious. A giant head protruding halfway out of the surface, surrounded by tentacles. Staring back at him was a single eye, reminiscent of the many forms of some things that haunted him. I thought I banished you to the abyss and wiped away your memories, Omori recalled. You did, Abby stated, although she showed no sign of contempt towards him, strangely enough. Abby, one of the first 3 imaginary friends he had brought to White Space in order to be a companion and distraction for Sunny. The wisest one, Abby had acted as a sort of surrogate sister figure for Sunny to fill the void left empty after Mari's death. She had been the one to introduce him to Headspace in the first place, conjuring the door that led him out into the colorful pastel world of his imagination. Along with Humphrey and the big yellow cat, the 4 of them would travel on adventures together to keep Sunny entertained. Abby was too wise and caring for her own good though. Knowing that Sunny was still in pain from the guilt over what he had done, Abby wanted to encourage Sunny to face the truth so that he could find the strength to forgive himself. At the time, facing the truth was the last thing Sunny wanted to do. Thus, her attempts to help him only caused him further pain and suffering. Omori had summoned her to fulfill the role as a distraction for Sunny, not to help remind him of the truth. Acting beyond her duties and hurting him in the process. Omori became furious and banished her into the darkest depths of the abyss that he could think of, as well as stripped away her wisdom so that she would never be smart enough to find a way out again. Afterwards, Omori performed his first ever reset of Headspace in order to forget that she had ever existed. Seeing her again after so long, especially in this new grotesque form she had, it was quite unsettling for the most part. Omori didn't know what to think of it. You look different, Omori said simply. Yes, the abyss wasn't kind to me, Abby explained sadly. Those who wander the realms close to black space for too long will eventually find themselves deformed. You might have seen some familiar faces during your adventures, but perhaps didn't recognize them. Omori could recall some of them, yeah. At the time, they all just seemed like monsters from his nightmares. He didn't realize that they were actually all his former imaginary friends from the earliest cycles, all abandoned or punished in some ways or another for similar reasons. How did you get your memories back? Omori asked. The light bulb was broken, wasn't it? Abby stated. Everything you ever tried to hide away and forget came back in full force. This includes more than just the truth about your sister, Dreamer. Omori didn't quite understand fully, but he supposed that's as satisfactory an answer as any. Not even he knew exactly the full logic behind how his imaginary friends worked in his mind. Sometimes the inhabitants of Headspace felt more lifelike than he expected for a bunch of imaginary people. So, you have faced the truth, finally, Abby said sadly, and yet, you chose not to forgive yourself. I'm truly saddened. Omori furrowed his brows at this, before telling her, don't be. I'm not worth pitying over. I guess not then, Abby turned her eye away depressingly. I was just hoping that something else would have happened instead. For someone who had spent years trapped and tortured in the darkest pits of the ocean, Abby was surprisingly amicable towards him. You still care about me, even after what I did to you? At this, Abby gave a small chuckle. It will take a lot more than erasing my mind and torturing my body to get me to hate you, Dreamer. For most people, it would take far less to be enough. And when have I ever been like most people? Omori didn't answer, knowing it was just a rhetorical question. It was odd, talking to her again after all these years. Omori had mostly forgotten Abby's entire existence up until now, so he didn't quite know what to say to her. Well, there was one thing he should probably say. Sorry. Omori apologized stoically. Sorry for a lot of things, to be precise. Sorry for banishing her when she was only trying to help. Sorry for wiping away her mind so that she could suffer endlessly this entire time. Sorry for doing what ended up being a pointless waste of time to begin with. It's okay. I forgive you. ABBI responded simply. Omori flinched back, feeling like he had been hit directly in the heart. Damn it, that was not what you were supposed to say to a horrible person like him. It hurts to be forgiven. He didn't like it. He'd rather ABBI hate him instead. Knowing her though, asking that would be impossible. Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. ABBI, can I ask something? Of course, dreamer. What's on your mind? ABBI responded expectantly. After I tried to kill myself, I woke up in a different world where my sister was still alive. She's trying to convince me that the past 4 years were just a nightmare I had from a coma. Omori explained. It all seemed too convenient to be true. I was wondering if you knew whether it was just a dream or not. Surely, someone as wise and smart as ABBI could help him figure this out. ABBI closed her eye and gave a contemplative hum, before answering unsurely, I don't think I can provide the answer to that. This is something you'll need to discover by yourself. Omori sighed and looked away with disappointment. Figures. Of course ABBI wouldn't know anything. If even he couldn't tell whether or not it was all real, how could he expect ABBI to know? She was just an imaginary friend after all. If you ask me though, I'd say this must be a second chance for you. Perhaps it would be best not to look a gift horse in the mouth and accept it. With a dismissive scoff, Omori hid his face in his knees and grumbled, and why would anyone want to give me a second chance? I don't deserve it. Maybe, maybe not. You feel this way now, but maybe someday you'll change your mind, ABBI offered. Horizontal ellipsis. No, not if Omori could help it. A murderer like him doesn't deserve to live. Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. Changing the topic, Omori looked up at her curiously before asking, so, why are you here with me, ABBI? Don't tell me you just wanted to keep me company. Surprisingly, ABBI shook her head. Contrary to what you're thinking, no. As much as I enjoy seeing you again, I have something important to do. Huh? Omori looked at her confusedly. Your friends wish to see you again. I'm here to help lead you to them. Wait, what? What friends? You mean Mari and the others? They're still around. She nodded. But I thought Headspace was taken over by Black Space. I'm not hiding the truth anymore. Headspace doesn't have a reason to exist. It was all just something I created to keep myself distracted, wasn't it? How could his friends in Headspace be around if Headspace doesn't exist anymore? ABBI giggled at him before saying, Headspace is more than just an imaginary world created by you, dreamer. It's an idea that's existed long before you ever came to be born, since the beginning of time itself. Omori felt himself growing confused even further. He wasn't even sure if this was just all his overactive imagination talking or not. It would be hard to explain. Just know for now that your friends are waiting for you. It seems pretty important too. ABBI insisted. Whatever they have to say, I think you should at least hear them out. Omori took one last look around the area. Nothing but a dark gray ocean and a dark forest behind him. It's not like he has anything better to do. Standing up from his spot, he patted the sand off of him before nodding. Okay then, lead the way. A red door suddenly appeared in front of him, exactly on cue. Travel through here, dreamer. Everyone will be waiting for you on the other side. ABBI told him. Omori widened his eyes at seeing the familiar red door in front of him again. This was the door that led to the church. Horizontal ellipsis. Something inside him made him hesitate. He wasn't sure if he was ready to go through yet, and he couldn't understand why. ABBI seemed to notice this, pointing out, getting cold feet, dreamer. Horizontal ellipsis. Why does it feel like I'm about to say goodbye? Omori asked cautiously. ABBI gave a small hum, before confirming, maybe because you are. That definitely didn't answer his question. Giving a small gulp, he rephrased the question, will I ever see you again? Unexpectedly, ABBI answered him honestly, I'm afraid not, dreamer. Once you go through this door, this will be the last time we ever see each other again. For real this time. Ah, so that's why he felt so hesitant. Horizontal ellipsis. In that case, sorry again for everything I've ever done, ABBI. It would have been nice if we went on some adventures together one last time. Omori apologized again. It would have been nice, wouldn't it? Despite it all, Omori had the feeling that ABBI would be smiling at him if she still had a mouth to do so. Horizontal ellipsis. Omori still hadn't moved towards the door yet. For some reason, he felt like he had something more important to say to her. Don't tell me you're thinking you might regret leaving me, ABBI said in a teasing tone. You were planning to end your life the last time you were here, and you didn't even think to say goodbye to anyone. Suddenly changed your mind. Instead of answering her question, Omori asked back, why is this going to be the last time we see each other? Are you going somewhere important? No, dreamer. I'm staying right here. You're the one who's going somewhere important. She replied cryptically, you'll see what I mean when you meet your friends. Omori was going somewhere important. Huh? Okay then. Knowing that there was nothing else for him here, Omori steeled himself before opening the door. Good luck, old friend. You'll be needing it up ahead, ABBI said just as he passed through the door. What he expected when he got to the other side was the familiar unrelenting cold showering his body, just like all the other times he's been here. He definitely got that, seeing how he was shivering right now. What he did not expect the moment he opened his eyes was to feel someone collide against him and wrap him into a warm hug. Omori, you're here. The green hair and the flower crown covering his vision right now could only belong to one person. Basil, Omori muttered in shock. Pulling away, the green-haired pastel-colored flower boy gave a humorous smile. Who else would it be? The last time he had seen him, Omori had stabbed his guts out with a knife and trampled over his body to get to the throne of red hands. He never did make it to neighbor's bedroom to force a reset before Sunny woke up, did he? This Basil should still be a corpse right now. You look like you've seen a ghost. Something wrong, best friend? Basil tilted his head curiously. God, don't even mention ghosts right now. He's seen so many ghosts recently that he was about to have an existential crisis. Omori shook his head, just surprised to see you is all. It was at this point that Omori finally took a deep look around to notice that he and Basil weren't the only ones in the area. Lots of familiar faces surrounded him on the snowy mountain of the church. All inhabitants of the many worlds he came across during his adventures. Many of them seemed busy conversing with each other, but the occasional few had noticed him staring and showed their greetings in one way or another. What's going on, exactly? Omori felt the need to ask, growing confused by the situation. Everyone here is showing up to say their final goodbyes, Basil explained cheerfully. Final goodbyes? To who? Who do you think? Basil chuckled obviously. Horizontal ellipsis. So, was that how this works? Now that he wasn't suppressing the truth from himself any longer, his overactive imagination decided to give him one last final send-off with all the imaginary friends in his mind before the entire place gets overtaken by black space. Seems fitting. Feels sort of like an end-of-the-world party being celebrated. So where are Mari and the others? Basil pointed up to the top. They're all waiting for us back in neighbor's bedroom. We're having a slumber party there. Is that so? Sounds nice. He wouldn't mind one last final slumber party with all his friends. He wasn't quite sure he knew what was going to happen next after this. However, if headspace gets overtaken by black space, will he be left all alone? What will happen to him the next time he goes back to sleep? Will it just be normal dreams from here on out? We don't have to go there immediately, you know, Basil informed him, gesturing to the crowd of people surrounding them. We still have some time left to say goodbye to the others. Omori shrugged, deciding to go with the flow and letting Basil lead him around the area. On their journey up to the church, the two of them met up with many familiar friends and foes alike as they exchanged their goodbyes. The playground children were first, all expressing their fond farewells and thanking Omori for the time they were able to spend playing together. Boss was amongst them as well, somehow getting along with Burley of all people. He and Basil had a quick hug as he thanked the flower boy for sticking up for him when no one else would. After that were the people of Otherworld. Various inhabitants from that world came to say their farewells before they both came across Pluto and Captain Spaceboy having a heart-to-heart talk with each other. Strangely enough, The various clones of Sweetheart were standing just nearby, as if waiting on Captain Spaceboy. Pluto wanted Omori to flex with him at least one time before he had to go. Omori decided to humor the dwarf planet by flexing his muscles and repeating the signature catchphrase. When I flex, I feel my beast. When I flex, I feel my best. Omori flexed half-heartedly. He felt like an idiot, but it was fun to play along. Pluto then asked Omori to remember to say goodbye to Kel for him, which Omori will try to keep in mind. Captain Spaceboy came up to him next, hand in hand with Perfect Heart as Mutant Heart, and Robo Heart followed slightly behind. Apparently, the four of them had met at some point and decided to hit it off with each other. He was now happily space husband for real, this time to 3 different clones of his original girlfriend. Good for him. Omori always liked the space pirate captain. Orange Oasis was next in line. The wacky characters from that world all came forward to him and gave their goodbyes and wished him good luck. He wasn't expecting to see an unlikely duo discussing something amongst themselves. Mr. Outback and Daddy Longlegs were standing together holding a conversation until one of them noticed Omori approaching. How do you do, buckaroo? The cowboy greeted gently. Seems you finally made it through the end of your journey. Darn shame the fat load of good it did for ya, though. So you have finally decided to embrace the truth rather than run from it again. Daddy Longlegs crouched down to get closer, yet even so, you still choose to deny your salvation. An interesting, if not disappointing, outcome. Perhaps it would have been better to live in blissful ignorance after all, dreamer. Would it have made a difference if I chose to live like that? Omori asked curiously. Perhaps not, Daddy Longlegs sighed. The end of the world was an inevitability, whether you choose to accept the truth or not. The darkness would have overtaken this world one way or another. This path just ended up being quicker. Remembering the time when Omori came across Daddy Longlegs on his adventure to find Basil, back in the Lost Forest, Omori asked, so you knew this was all going to happen from the beginning? Back when Omori was still trying to suppress the truth, this mysterious dark man in the Lost Forest had told all of them the story about Headspace's origins. A door conjured by a dreamer, bored from being stuck in his room. He would wander around the world, coming and going as he pleased. Eventually, he would accidentally come across the darkness that lurked deep below the surface and began to fear it. Thus, in his fear, he forcefully piled world after world on top of the darkness to cover it up, hoping that it would never be found again. But the darkness never stopped clawing its way back out to torment the dreamer, not until he chose to forget himself and lived in ignorance as he took another name. At the time, it seemed like a weird and cryptic story that couldn't possibly help him find his missing friend Basil. All it did was creep him and his friends out. Now that he knew better, he was slowly realizing just how much these imaginary people in his head knew more than he originally thought. As all things are born, so too must they end. Daddy Longlegs answered back in his usual mysterious manner. It is not a bad thing, though. Sometimes things must come to an end so that another could be born in its place. A circle of life, as you would call it. Someday, another headspace will take its place. Horizontal ellipsis. Headspace was such a mysterious world. The people living in it even more so. How much of this was actually just a part of his overactive imagination? Even he had to admit, he couldn't possibly be this creative to come up with all of this. Characters like these. Before he could ask any further questions of how much they knew, Basil tugged on his arm. Come on, Omori. I know I said we had time, but we should really hurry up if we want to make it to the others. Alright. Omori nodded apologetically before waving goodbye to the 2 more mysterious inhabitants of Headspace. So they continued on, meeting familiar character after character along their way up to the church. Kite Kid and his kite gave them a respectful salute as he flew kite in the air. It was nice to see him doing well. Mr. Jossum was apparently enjoying an increased hike in the stock market, saying that the end of the world was helping him make a killing in selling insurance. How he'll enjoy any of those clams by the time Headspace gets overtaken. Omori decided not to ask in order to let him have his brief thrill of fun. Seeing the slime girls still alive was another surprise that he wasn't expecting. Although they were only just a trio of talking heads now, they didn't seem to have any hard feelings towards Omori since their last encounter. Another big surprise was the fact that they converted the obnoxiously selfish sweetheart into the obnoxiously annoying Sweefert. She was apparently going to work off the debt she owed to them by being their maid, despite the fact that the end of the world was coming. Omori gave Sweefert his entire life savings of clems as a tip, to show his support. She immediately crumpled up the valueless paper and threw it off the cliff, called him a miserable peon, then continued sweeping the mountain in a fit of rage. Darn. A reliable source told him that clems would replace clams in the future. Oh well. While Omori was busy saying goodbye to everyone he came across, Basil stood by the side with a smile every time before leading him towards the next character. Seeing the flower boy acting happy and smiling, despite the gruesome death he experienced, made Omori wonder if Basil had somehow forgotten about it when he somehow came back to life. On the stairways leading up to the church, Omori actually pulled Basil back so that he could actually ask a few questions. Something wrong, Omori? Basil asked with a patient smile. Omori stared at the flower boy, wondering what to say or how to ask. Without the truth being suppressed, Omori remembered every single time he had killed Basil within the depths of black space. Each death was more gruesome and violent than the last. If Omori could remember, does that mean Basil could too? Horizontal ellipsis. Basil, how much do you remember since the last time we spoke? Omori ended up asking. Basil widened his eyes a bit before looking away embarrassingly. Oh, that? It doesn't really matter anymore, does it? It does, to me, at least. Omori shook his head. I want to know how much you know. Do you remember any of the other cycles? With a sigh, Basil rubbed his head and frowned. Why yes, I do. All of them, in fact. Ever since the light bulb was broken. The same case with ABBI then. Somehow, Omori knew that was going to be the case. Aren't you upset? Omori felt he should ask. I kinda killed you. Like, a lot of times. Several times, actually. Basil shook his head before giving a reassuring smile. Like I said, I really don't think it matters anymore. Instead of focusing on that, we should be living in the moment now that we can finally spend time together before everything goes away. Seriously? No grudges at all. Omori pulled out his steak knife and pointed the handle towards the flower boy. I wouldn't mind if you wanted to even the score a little. Geez, Omori. Basil quickly pushed the knife away and gave him a disapproving look. I wish you learned to love yourself a bit more. I already told you that it doesn't matter. Giving a tired sigh, Omori pocketed the weapon away. Guess I'm just feeling guilty now that I remembered everything I ever did. You've been feeling guilty enough these past 4 years. I just want our last moments to be happy now. Extending a hand out to Omori, Basil gently smiled. We're almost there. Let's keep going. Omori nodded as he took his hand before they continued walking up the path. On the second highest platform of the mountain where the church sits, Omori could see Humphrey casually floating by in the air. Noticing the monochrome boy approaching, the whale grinned. Well, if it isn't my favorite sailor. Sailor, you haven't called me that in a long time. Like ABBI and the big yellow cat, Humphrey was one of Omori's first ever imaginary friends. Based on a book in the real world, he would often take Omori off on adventures while living inside his stomach. At some point, Omori must have just naturally forgotten about him when he started yearning for the relationships he used to have with Aubrey, Hiro, Kel, and Basil. Being stuck in a cave by yourself with nothing to do does tend to make one go a bit crazy after a while. Nyuk. The whale laughed heartily. It's nice to be able to remember everything though, even if it's only for my last moments. Sorry for forgetting about you, Humphrey. Omori apologized. Feeling sorry for me, are you? Humphrey grinned mischievously, before asking, in that case, how about tossing a few clams my way? I'll be much more forgiving after having a last meal. Always hungry, aren't you? Omori smirked as he fished out his wallet full of clams. Tossing the entire thing to the whale, he stated, savor it. Not like I'll be needing this anymore. Humphrey happily caught the wallet with his tongue before munching on it. Delicious. A quick swallow and a loud burp later, the whale gave a satisfied sigh. Looking down at Omori, he gave what seemed to be a very rare sad smile, something Omori has never seen him do before. You're a good boy, dreamer. You always have been. I hope you know that. A good boy, huh? Horizontal ellipsis. No, not even remotely close. I'll miss you, Humphrey. Goodbye. Omori nodded back. Humphrey waved a flipper goodbye at him as they made their way to the entrance of the church. Before Omori could open the door, Basil actually pulled him back a few feet before staring at it. Basil. Just wait for it. Basil replied simply. Horizontal ellipsis. Suddenly, a big giant red jar crashed through the entrance, breaking the door off its hinges and shattering it to millions of tiny pieces. Oh yeah, Life Jam Guy cheerfully shouted, perfectly landing right in front of the two boys. There we go. Basil nodded satisfyingly, somehow seeing this coming. I was wondering where he was. Omori stated neutrally, handing a jar of Life Jam each to the both of them. Life Jam Guy stated, try out these free samples of Life Jam. It really works. Then without another word, the big red jar suddenly charged off the cliff and fell to the dark oblivion below. Horizontal ellipsis. Well, okay then. Horizontal ellipsis. Hope he's alright. With that out of the way, the two boys pocketed their jam away before heading inside the church. Church was still as silent as ever. Omori and Basil carefully made their way through the sermon, doing their best not to disturb the scribbles that were pitter-pattering inside. The light shining down from the podium stairway was bright and warm. It was bright enough to illuminate the inside of the entire building. We're nearly there, Basil remarked with a smile. Making their way to the top of the stairs, their progress was blocked by a huge gap of space that was in between them and their destination. I can't handle this, Omori stated, raising his hand out to command the red hands to form a bridge for them. Horizontal ellipsis. When no red hands came, he blinked in surprise. Staring at his own hand, he curled his fingers as he wondered what was wrong. Or, not, Omori mumbled awkwardly. Usually, the red hands always obeyed him once he became aware of himself and took control. Why couldn't he control them anymore? Was it because of me? Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. Basil brought Omori out of his thoughts, gently tugging his shirt and reassuring, don't worry. We don't need them this time. Without bothering to explain, Basil put two fingers near his mouth and gave a shrill whistle. Almost immediately after, like a weird rolling of red carpet down a flight of stairs, a bunch of sprout moles began forming a bridge downwards towards the two of them, connecting each other one by one until the last sprout mole came tumbling down in front of them in a daze. To his surprise, this sprout mole was actually one that he recognized. A pink bow on a sprout mole could only mean one person. Rosa stood up on her stubby feet before shaking her head clear, then proceeding to act natural as she regarded Basil with a smooth, "You called, cutie." Omori mumbled, unsure how to react. What? I managed to convince the sprout moles from the colonies to help us out one last time. We should be able to get up to neighbor's bedroom now, Basil proclaimed cheerfully. Omori took another deep look at the makeshift sprout mole stairs ahead of him. In his honest opinion, it didn't really look like the sturdiest thing he could trust. Other than that, he was still a bit in shock to see Rosa of all people agreeing to help him out. He couldn't help but stare at the self-proclaimed #1 Sweefert fan with a discerning eye. As if offended by his suspicion, Rosa gave an indignant huff before clarifying, "Don't get the wrong idea, stick legs. I'm not doing this for your sake. I just remembered owing Basil baby here a favor from a previous life." Then with an accusatory glare, she told Omori, if it wasn't for a certain someone unable to handle the truth and forcing everything to reset all the time, I would have repaid it eons ago. Ouch. Those were the first hurtful words she ever gave him that actually managed to sting. Also, Rosa owed Basil a favor from a previous cycle. Man, that flower boy can get along with just about anyone. All right, settle down. Basil calmly waved his hands at the mole. Omori has been through enough hardships. Think you can let bygones be bygones just for tonight? In a complete 180 change in attitude, Rosa turned to Basil with a happy look. Of course, Basil baby. Whatever you want, Rosa will provide. Let me know if you need anything else. Basil chuckled. Sure thing, Rosa. Thanks for everything. With that, Rosa stepped out of the way to let Basil pass her as he began taking the first steps up the sprout mole stairs. Noticing that Omori still hasn't moved, he turned around with a curious, "You coming, Omori?" Omori gave another hesitant glance at the stairs before deciding to just go along with it as he shrugged. Basil smiled as Omori proceeded to follow after the flower boy, before the two walked together up to neighbor's bedroom while minding their step. When he made it to the top, he saw his old group of friends sitting in a circle while enjoying a picnic. The beds were moved away in order to give more space to the center of the room, where Mari had set the picnic blanket on. Overlooking them from above was the big yellow cat, guarding the place as he always does. Everyone seemed to be in high spirits despite the fact that Headspace was going to disappear soon. "Hey guys, we're here," Basil cheerfully called out once they reached the room. The moment they heard his call, everyone immediately stood up and ran over as they began crowding Omori. "Omori, you're finally back," Aubrey cheered, hugging onto his arm as she usually does to show her affection. "Took you long enough. We've been waiting here forever." Kel chuckled as he slapped Omori's back. "Glad to see you made it back safe and sound. Did you get the chance to say goodbye to everyone?" Hiro asked gently, patting a comforting hand on Omori's head. Off a few meters away, he saw Mari giving him a welcoming smile. "Hi, Omori." Cliff-faced as usual, "I see." Omori looked around and soaked in the atmosphere. The welcoming smiles that everyone gave him, the sheer sincerity in their voices as they excitedly greeted him. The fact that they all looked so happy, even though everything was about to be wiped away soon. He wasn't really sure how to feel. A conflict of emotions arose inside him. For the most part, he does feel a bit happy to see them all again. It felt more bittersweet, knowing that everything was going to be gone soon. But he also felt guilty. Despite just being the imaginary versions of his real-life friends, they had been so helpful and caring towards him throughout all these years. While he was busy selfishly indulging himself in this fake world trying to forget about the truth, their real-world counterparts had been suffering because of what he did. Not only that, but memories of all their previous lives from previous cycles came to him in an instant. During many adventures on their search for Basil, he remembered the three of them dying many times in order to protect him. Although reviving them back to life was as simple as covering their toast with some jam, or just a quick nap in neighbor's bedroom, the more scarring deaths always left a mark on him. He was pretty sure that the bones from their previous bodies still existed somewhere. Either back where they originally died, or thrown away to the abyss so that Omori didn't have to remember it. Knowing what he knows now, he didn't think he deserved any of the smiles aimed at him. If anything, he felt like they should all hate him. He knew that the ones from the real world would have hated him, at least. Seeing him clamming up in silence, Mari gently pushed everyone away to give him some space before reaching a hand out to him. "Why don't you come sit with us? We still have time for one last picnic together, don't you think?" Omori stared at the hand of his sister, the imaginary version that he made for himself so that he could pretend that she was still alive. Sometimes she was so lifelike, it was hard to tell if she ever died in the first place. He looked up to watch her face. Mari gave an encouraging smile back at him. Horizontal ellipsis. After a while, he gave a relenting sigh and accepted the hand in front of him so that she could lead him towards the picnic blanket. There was no harm in entertaining himself one last final time, before he has to move on from this fake world. That's what he ended up deciding on. One last final dream with all of his friends, however artificial they may be. Then he'll accept reality. During the time he spent with his friends, they proceeded to play a variety of games together as they waited for the end. Mari finally helped Hero master making flower crowns, which he went ahead and donned on his head with a proud smile. They brought out a watermelon to smash, with Aubrey being the one in the blindfold as she haphazardly waved her bat around. She managed to get lucky and hit Kel in the stomach, which she seemed happy about. Next, they all had a pillow fight together in teams of 2. Mari was paired with Aubrey, Kel with Hiro, and Omori was stuck with the lifelong pacifist Basil. It was very difficult defending the both of them by himself, but he managed to have fun since everyone was such good sports about it. After that, they played a few board games together as they rested their tired bodies. When that was over, Mari had this weird idea of painting Omori's monochrome body so that he would look like everyone else. For some reason, this idea excited everybody else except him. Still, he kept his body still even as they all took their sweet time painting over him like a blank canvas. When they brought out a mirror for him to witness their handiwork, Omori was shocked to see how well they did. Having the same pastel colors as everyone else, he looked like he would fit right in with all the other inhabitants of Headspace. In a way, he imagined that this was what Sunny would have looked like if he belonged to someone else's imagination. Brushing a hand over his new dark purple hair, he gave a thumbs up to the group, causing them to all cheer at the success of their hard work. All in all, it was a surprisingly eventful night. He couldn't ask for a better finale for his dream world. When they played all the games they could think of, the group decided to just laze about together as they all admired the stars in the sky. Laying next to Basil, Omori decided to ask something that he had been curious about this whole time but never had the chance to ask. What's going to happen to everyone once Headspace gets wiped by Black Space? He asked, turning his head over to the flower boy. That's a good question, he hummed and thought, before turning to Omori with a smile. I guess we all just stop existing. That's kind of sad. After everything we've all been through, everything just gets erased like that. Omori frowned. Don't feel bad, Omori. None of us are real in the first place. You made us so that we could keep you company, that's all. Basil replied. You don't need us anymore now that you've faced the truth. Is it weird that a part of me wishes that you could all just live your own lives, to somehow enjoy being alive and have a future together? A little, yeah. Basil giggled, but I appreciate the sentiment. I'm sure everyone else does too. Horizontal ellipsis. What's going to happen to me once Headspace disappears? Omori asked. Will I ever be able to come back to visit if I wanted to? Do you have any plans to? Basil asked back. Omori thought about it, realizing the implications of the question. To want to come back would mean to want to go back to a fake world and forget all about reality again. To lock himself away from the truth once more. He wouldn't want to come back. Not when he finally broke the cycle. Not when he hasn't faced the consequences of his actions yet. He still isn't dead, after all. No, Omori shook his head sadly. I guess you'll just have to settle with the regular dreams then. Basil answered softly. Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. Hey, guys, Kel called out, coming back from the entrance of the bedroom. I just checked out there. Everything is pitch black outside. I think it's almost time. The end is finally near. Oh well, it was fun while it lasted. Aubrey remarked happily, bouncing off the floor with abundant energy. I guess it's time to get ready to say our farewells too. Hiro yawned as he stretched before pulling himself off the floor. Basil and Mari wordlessly stood up as well. Knowing what was about to come, Omori pushed himself off the ground and faced all of them as they all grouped up. Facing Omori together hand in hand, each and every last one of them gave a great big smile and a theatrical bow. Thanks for everything, Omori. We're going to miss you. Aubrey led off first. We hope we managed to make you smile and have lots of fun. Going on adventures with you has been the best thing to ever happen. Kel continued off. Yeah, even though we had our good times and bad times, none of us are ever going to forget any of this. Hiro picked up the baton. We know how much you've been suffering these past few years. If we were able to give you even just a brief moment of happiness, then we're glad to have at least done our job properly. Basil continued there. You've always been a great friend towards us, and we're always going to be thankful for that. Even during your darkest moments, you never abandoned any of us. Omori blinked in shock at all the kind words being lobbed at him by all of his friends. He wasn't expecting such a grandiose farewell. He couldn't help but wonder if they were really imaginary at all. Would his imagination really create something so lifelike and realistic? For a moment, he was almost convinced that everyone here was real, and that he was going to genuinely miss them. Mari came up to him with a smile, gesturing behind him. You can stay a little bit longer if you want and wait for the end with us. But if you're ready to leave now, the door is sitting right there. He turned to look at a familiar white door appearing out of nowhere by the edge of the room. Was this a door leading to white space? Or was it something else entirely? Omori cautiously stepped up to the door and studied it as he brushed a hand on the wooden surface. It looked exactly like the door that he always used to enter Headspace. The light suddenly cut off, blanketing the world into darkness. He blinked in surprise for a bit, before remembering that this was probably it. Black space has finally overtaken everything. Headspace would no longer exist anymore. He gave one last look behind him to see all of his friends still there, smiling at him. With a grateful nod, he went ahead to open the door. Wait, Sonny. His hand froze before it could even touch the doorknob. One last thing, before you go. He heard Aubrey whisper behind him. Horizontal ellipsis. Omori hesitantly turned around to face his friends again, only for his eyes widened in shock. Instead of the young versions of his friends that he was so used to seeing back in his childhood, all of them had changed appearance to look more like the old ones that he had gotten to know recently. Although they were still in their regular pastel colors, all of his friends now looked like the teenagers he had met during the 3 days he had left in faraway town. Only Mari was the exception, as she stood by the sidelines and looked away. Basil stepped up first, no longer wearing the flower crown that he usually had. Instead, his outfit was an exact copy of the one that Basil wore back in the real world the last time Omori saw him. So was everyone else. So, in the end, you ended up making the other choice. Basil didn't seem like he had the strength to smile anymore, giving Omori a sad frown. I had hoped that you would want to make new memories with all of us, to try to move on. I guess it ended up being too much of a burden on you, huh? Looking down on the floor, he muttered, I'm really sorry, Sonny, for everything. Hiro curled his fists as he stepped up too. Did you really have that little faith in us, Sonny? I know it must have been hard to accept, but you couldn't have at least put your trust in us that we might have been able to forgive you? I thought you knew us better than that. Aubrey rubbed her arms as she sighed depressingly, even though we all came to cheer you on. To give you the boost of courage you needed to face the truth. You still chose to leave us the way you did. I thought we were able to help you get over it, but it turns out that we were never enough, were we? Kel cried out, I would have been there for you if you needed me. You didn't have to keep your emotions bottled up inside anymore. I told you that just because you did something bad, it doesn't make you a bad person. I told you that, didn't I? Omori felt a range of emotions as he listened to all their words. Suddenly, a memory came to mind as he recalled something that happened before. Memories of meeting up with Basil right outside his house after chasing Muo down the street. The memory of the podium stage, where he had just finished repairing the violin, after he took the trip down memory lane. Memories of his friends all being there to give him their last words of encouragement before he had faced the truth. Before Sonny faced the truth. Before Omori assimilated with him and took the reins from then on. So it was you guys all along, Omori said softly in recognition. There were more good times to come. Life could have gotten better. I know it would have. Hiro spoke out weakly, you were the one that was supposed to make that happen. But, you still chose not to. Bottling up your feelings will always lead to them coming back out eventually. What you did with those feelings, that would have been your truth. Aubrey clenched her teeth tightly as she held back tears. Even though we don't have the right to tell you what to do or what to think. I'm still pissed that you gave up on yourself. It didn't have to be goodbye. You didn't have to leave. Kel sniffled, wiping his eyes. You didn't even bother to take the time to at least say goodbye. We could have stopped you. We believed in you, Sonny. Aubrey sobbed. I believed in you. Horizontal ellipsis. Was this really just his imagination? At this point, he wasn't even sure anymore. In his mind, he truly believed that they all would have hated him if they ever found out the truth of what he did. That they would all abandon him once they knew that he killed Mari and faked her suicide. Why would a bunch of imaginary versions of his friends be trying so hard to tell him otherwise? Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. Even so, he already made up his mind. He refuses to be a burden on his friends any longer. A murderer like him didn't deserve to live. Life would be better if he'd just die. No matter what you guys say, your words aren't going to reach Sonny. Omori said back emotionlessly. This only broke their hearts even further. Then, I guess this really is goodbye then, Aubrey sniffed as she wiped her tears. None of them had anything left to say as they all faded away to the darkness, one by one. Black space finally consumed everything. Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. Headspace. What a mysterious world he imagined for himself. Even though he knew everyone who lived inside was just a figment of his imagination, somehow, it still felt so real to him. Maybe he was insane to think that. While he was stuck in deep thought, Mari had come up to his side and grabbed his hand. Omori looked up in surprise, not expecting her to still be here. "You're not leaving like the others." Giving a soft smile, she told him, "I have to be there to help guide my little brother to the other side." Looking down on the floor with a remorseful expression, he muttered softly, "You don't have to. Oh, just shush and walk with me, won't you?" Mari giggled lightly, before gesturing to the door again. "After you. I'll be following your lead again." Omori glanced over at Mari to see her give him another encouraging smile. Knowing that he had nothing else to do, he opened the door behind him and entered as Mari followed closely behind. On the other side of the door was a long thin sidewalk that seemed to stretch on forever. Omori and Mari began to walk in silence as they started their journey. For a long while, they didn't bother saying anything to each other. They just quietly walked down the lane, holding hands together. In a way, it felt calming and nice. When was the last time he ever had the chance to go on walks with his sister anymore? Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. It took a while before he noticed that white egret orchids were planted on the side of the lane. Dozens of them were littered all over the place. In fact, he wondered what that meant. "Hey, Omori," Mari spoke up suddenly, "can I ask for a favor from you?" Omori glanced over at Mari curiously. "A favor? What do you mean? I know you have plans to throw your life away after this. But is it possible if I can ask you to hold off on your plans for just a little bit? There's something important I need you to help me with before you go." "Depends, I guess." Omori shrugged. "What do I have to do?" "There's a girl I know that needs help." Mari began explaining, "She's actually sort of like you. She's been suffering for so long, thinking that she did something terrible to someone she loves. She's been trapped in her own mind for several years now, trying to hide away from the truth of what she did." Omori widened his eyes at this. "She has a headspace? Like me?" Mari nodded. "Yeah. She's been trying to distract herself all this time just to keep herself sane. The problem is that I don't think it's going to help any longer. She might end up getting worse if nothing gets done about it." "You want me to visit her and try to get her to face the truth?" Omori asked. Mari shook her head. "Not just that. I want you to try to get her to forgive herself." Omori furrowed his brows at this as he looked away. "I don't think I can help with that. I'm not the right person to ask. I couldn't even forgive myself. So what makes you think I would be any help?" "You're the only person I can trust to do this," Mari insisted. "Actually, you're the only person that could possibly help at all. There's no one else I can rely on." Horizontal ellipsis. Mari. "I shouldn't even be alive right now," Omori started off, before being quickly interrupted. "I know how you feel, Omori. But, please," Mari pleaded, staring at him with a sad smile, "won't you do it for your big sister? Just this one last favor before you go? I know it's selfish for me to ask, but I promise I won't ask you to do anything else after this. This is really important to me." Horizontal ellipsis. Omori stared back at her, feeling his resolve crumble in a matter of seconds. God, he really couldn't ever say no to her, could he? He could never say no. With a sigh, he asked, "Do I even know this girl?" Seeing that as a good sign, Mari gave a relieved smile as she continued, "Yes, you do actually. You might actually know her extremely well, better than anyone else. Will you at least tell me her name?" Mari went silent a bit as she weighed the answer in her head. In the end, she gave a coy smile and answered back, "Hikiko." Omori furrowed his brows in confusion. "Hikiko? I don't know anyone with that name. I dunno. You might recognize her once you see her," Mari said back in that smug in the no way that she usually does when she's keeping secrets. "Fine," Omori sighed. "I won't make any promises, but I can at least check it out to see what I can do. I'm still not sure exactly how much help I can be for her though. Trust me, Omori. You're the only one that can do anything for her," Mari reassured, before pulling him to a stop. Looking around, she spotted something in the distance before pointing at it for Omori to see. "Can I lead you to her right now?" With a half-hearted shrug, he muttered, "I guess." Another sidewalk appeared out of nowhere, diverging from the main path they were traveling on. The two of them proceeded to follow this new path before finally coming across another door. A white one, just like the one he entered from, just like the one in white space. She's right inside here, Mari told him, wanting to get this done and over with so that he could finally do what he originally set out to do. He stepped up to the door and opened it. A beach. It looked similar to the one in his imaginary world. Before he went through the door, he paused as he noticed Mari standing back instead of following him in. Not coming along, he asked. Mari shook her head sadly, can't do anything in a different headspace. I honestly should have vanished with the others back in neighbor's bedroom by now. Omori mumbled. Horizontal ellipsis. Will I ever see you again? He didn't know why he asked that. He already knew the answer to that. It wasn't like she was real anyway. Mari smiled. As long as you keep me in your memories, I'll always be there. With that comforting last message, she faded away from existence, just like everyone else. Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. So, one last job he had to do before ending it all. Horizontal ellipsis. Fine, as long as it was for her. Omori looked forward again and entered the door. Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. Omori was sitting on the shores by the ocean for what felt like hours now, staring out at the vast sea in front of him. He slowly blinked before becoming aware of where he was. He looked around, finding himself in unfamiliar territory. Looking down at himself, he was surprised to see that his usual monochrome appearance was still colored in with the pastel paint from before. Horizontal ellipsis. What was he doing again? Right. He had promised to check up on something for Mari, a girl named Hikiko, if he was remembering the name correctly. Horizontal ellipsis. Hey, guys, I found him. Omori perked up as he heard someone shout from behind him. Turning around, he was shocked to find a large group of familiar people running towards him. Sonny, we finally found you. Aubrey was the first to come up to him as she tackled him into a hug. Kel came soon after with a dumb grin on his face. So this was where you've been hiding. Geez, you had us worried for the whole day. Hiro arrived next, gasping heavily from his lack of stamina. Sonny. There, you are. Oh God, give me a minute to catch my breath. Basil was the next to appear, running to his other side and hugging Omori as well. Don't scare us like that. We've been trying to look for you all this time. We thought you ran away or got kidnapped. Omori was feeling incredibly confused at seeing the young versions of his pastel-colored friends again. Didn't they all disappear? They had given him their final goodbyes before headspace was consumed, hadn't they? What was the point of all of that if he was just going to see them again shortly after? But then one last person arrived, causing Omori to lose his breath in shock. Mari came up to him as she kneeled to his level before crying in relief. Oh, thank goodness. You're okay. She didn't have the same pastel colors as the others like she always did. In fact, her entire appearance was entirely monochrome, just like Omori usually was. Hugging his neck, Mari cried, You have to stop doing this to me, Sonny. My heart can't take any more. You know how much I hate being separated from you. Sorry. Omori apologized hesitantly. What in the world was going on right now? Hiro, after finally regaining his breath, stood up and gave a calm smile. I guess all's well that ends well. It's good to know you're safe, Sonny. With a chuckle, he started rubbing Mari's shoulders as she softly cried. Seriously though, you need to stop worrying your sister all the time. Hikiko would have flipped the entire place over and under just to try to find you, you know. Horizontal ellipsis. What? Hikiko, pulling away from him, his sister gave a smile as she wiped her tears. It doesn't matter anymore. As long as you're with me, everything is going to be okay. Omori stared at her, completely dumbstruck. She's Hikiko? Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. Suddenly, it all clicked in his mind. Everything started to make sense to him now. The reason why he woke up in a world where his sister was still alive. The reason why he didn't die. The reason why everything had been so confusing to him up until now. The universe wasn't rewarding him or giving him a second chance in life. The universe wasn't giving him his sister back after suffering for 4 years without her. This was the universe's way of punishing him. This was the last job he had to do before he could find the peace he was looking for. This was his redemption. His final job before passing on to the afterlife was to help this other Mari face the truth and find the strength to forgive herself. His final job was to help her do what he couldn't do for himself. This version of his sister was exactly like him, in almost every sense imaginable. Omori has to stop her from going down the same path he did before it was too late. Finally, it all made sense to him. For the first time in a long while, Omori felt himself smile. Oh yeah, it's all coming together. Chapter 12. Gentleman and lady, are you ready? Aubrey asked loudly, a pirate captain hat and eye patch decorating her head. Aye aye. Everyone else -1 cheered back. In that case, with a proud smile, Aubrey pointed her softball bat like an arrow as she stood at the bow of the sailboat, set sail towards the legendary island of Cockaigne. Full speed ahead. Hiro hoisted the sails on her command, giving a gruff, "Ard, Captain." Full mast deployed. The sail of the small boat they procured immediately picked up wind as the boat began sailing out to the vast ocean. Despite the heavy wind giving them incredible speed, it felt more like a gentle breeze on Hikiko's skin. The legend of Cockaigne Island, a mysterious and far-off paradise located in the middle of unknown waters. Never been marked on a map before, never been seen before. They say that the island was a utopia for children, where all who go there can rest their weary heads as all their needs and pleasures were taken care of. Those who go there will never have a need to worry about parents' expectations regarding schools or responsibilities ever again. The magic of the island would grant you unlimited energy, letting you play outside for as much as you wanted without getting tired. The trees grew unlimited amounts of sweets and pastries like candy, cake, pie, anything else you could imagine, and you could eat as many as you wanted without worrying about getting fat. A children's paradise world where they could do whatever they wanted without worrying about the consequences. Obviously, it was just a silly little story that Hikiko decided to tell during story time with the others. It was something she had read a book about and thought it might be fun to share. To think that Aubrey would get so gung-ho about wanting to try to find the island herself was something Hikiko did not foresee. Despite trying to convince the girl that it was only just a story, Aubrey insisted that they grab a boat and set sail as soon as they could so that they could be the first adventurers to find on this mythical paradise island. After lots of pleading and begging, the entire party eventually relented and decided to go see if it was real or not. Hiro thought it would be quicker to convince Aubrey by letting her go see it for herself and sate her curiosity. Reassuring Hikiko that it'd be safe as long as everyone was under her and Hiro's supervision, they went ahead and built a sailboat just for this occasion. Kel went along with it from the start, wanting to make the adventure pirate-themed since it involved traveling by boat. Since everyone else agreed with Aubrey's plan, Basil insisted that Aubrey be the leader for this adventure, much to Kel's dismay. And thus, that was how they got to where they were, in the middle of the ocean, searching for a possibly non-existent island. Janitor Kel, keep swabbing the poop deck. Aubrey commanded smugly, I don't want to see you stop until it's shiny enough to see my face in it. Kel groaned as he got stuck with janitor duty, swabbing away with his boat. Man, how come I always get stuck with chores whenever Aubrey becomes the leader? Maybe it's because you always make her do chores whenever you're the leader. Hiro offered playfully. Oh yeah, Kel hissed, cursed by his hubris. Less talking, more swabbing, Aubrey commanded loudly. Kel began grumbling to himself as he got back to work. I'll show you. Next time I'm the leader, I'll make you clean something super gross, you lousy little Rezel. Satisfied with his obedience, Aubrey looked up at the top of the boat where Basil was keeping watch with a telescope. How's the navigating, Navigator Basil? Basil did a quick sweep around before putting his telescope away and cheerfully shouted back, I have no idea what I'm doing. Aubrey gave a thumbs up. Keep up the good work. Okay, Basil gave a thumbs up back, before resuming his telescoping duties, or whatever. Boatmaster Hiro, make sure the boat is in perfect condition at all times. Aubrey called out to Hiro. With a serious expression and gruff voice, Hiro played along. Ard, Captain Aubrey, you're the boss. Turning to Hikiko on the sidelines, Aubrey commanded her, Quartermaster Hikiko. If anything goes wrong, you report directly to me or the first mate. Aye, Captain. Hikiko giggled as she saluted. With everything done and accounted for, Pirate Captain Aubrey gave a proud nod to herself before swooning all the way over to the wall where Sunny was standing. Leaning on his shoulder, Aubrey blushed as she snuggled up to him. And if anything does go wrong, I can rely on you to protect me. Isn't that right, First Mate Sunny? Unbothered by the intimate contact, the stoic boy simply shrugged. Aye. Seeing this from afar, Hikiko gave a small frown as she regarded her little brother with a curious glance. Usually, he'd be blushing red up to his ears whenever Aubrey was flirting with him. Instead, he seemed unnaturally calm despite having his crush be up in his face. Even though Sunny was usually the least expressive person in the group, it didn't mean that he was completely emotionless. Hikiko knew that Sunny was the type that could get easily embarrassed in the right situation. It was why she loved teasing him so much, just so that she could get a cute reaction out of him. Horizontal ellipsis. Hikiko noticed lately ever since they found him by the beach that there was something different about her little brother. What was different, she wasn't quite sure. He looked the same and acted how he always does, but there was something in his eyes that always made her feel like he was studying something. Normally he would be the type to be forgetful or get lost in his own thoughts. Recently though, Hikiko would catch Sunny staring at all sorts of things as if he was trying to dissect it in his mind. He was uncharacteristically more attentive and watchful than he'd ever been before. And when he did get lost in his own thoughts, he looked so serious and intense about whatever he was thinking about. Nothing like the usual carefree head in the clouds that she was so used to seeing. She wasn't sure exactly what it meant. It wasn't a bad thing, per se. It was just something she noted was different. Hopefully, her little brother was all right. If he had anything troubling him, he should know that he could rely on Hikiko to help him through it. Something wrong, Hikiko? Hiro asked curiously as he tapped her side. You've been staring at Sunny for a while. Oh, I'm embarrassed to have been caught off guard. Hikiko fumbled before assuring him. No, nothing's wrong. I was just making sure Sunny was all right. With an understanding smile, Hiro calmly reached out to her shoulder. Hey, it's completely fine. No matter what happens, Sunny will be safe with us. You can count on that. That wasn't exactly what she was worried about, but the comforting reassurance from Hiro still helped calm her down a bit. Hikiko nodded gratefully. Of course, you're right. Thanks, Hiro. Hiro smiled back before doing his rounds to make sure the boat was still in top peak condition. Hikiko turned back to Sunny just in time to catch him staring at her with an inquisitive glance before he quickly looked away and pretended that he was staring at something else. Horizontal ellipsis. Maybe she should have a talk with him later to see what was on his mind. He always had that bad habit of bottling up his emotions for other people's sake. Hikiko was starting to get just a little bit worried. They've been traveling for a decent while now. Omori stood by Aubrey's side as he watched the girl remain enthusiastic as ever while she performed her captain duties. So far, his first mate duties had remained unclear. All he ever did was just stick by Aubrey close enough for her to snuggle up against whenever she felt like it. He felt more like a personal pet than an actual first mate. After spending a decent amount of time in Hikiko's headspace, he noted that there was very little difference between how she imagined their old friend group compared to how he would. They all seemed similar enough to be nearly identical. If he had woken up here without any forewarning knowledge, he would have genuinely thought that this headspace was still his. Aubrey was still as girly and flirty towards him as ever. Omori was already used to that. Kel and Aubrey still got into fights, just as Omori expected. Hiro was still the reliable older brother that constantly mediates conflict within the group and was in love with Hikiko. Whatever bad blood Mari had with Hiro in this reality, it didn't seem to affect their relationship in her headspace. Perhaps that meant something that he'll need to figure out later. Basil acted completely the same, if not just a bit more affectionate towards him than normal. The only other difference he could notice between Omori's Basil and Hikiko's was the fact that this Basil's hair was completely blue instead of green. He wasn't sure if that meant anything yet. Probably just different preferences in color, most likely. There were certainly some more noticeable differences outside of that, however. The world itself was unrecognizable. It was just as colorful and beautiful as the headspace that he used to have, for sure. But the entire layout and location was completely different than his own. He'll need to stick close to Hikiko and her friends when traveling, otherwise he might get lost. He never figured Mari to be someone with an active imagination like him, though. The fact that her headspace was filled in with so much detail and creativity made him wonder about her mental state. Another difference that he was able to note was how much more reserved Hikiko was compared to how he remembered Mari back then. She seemed much more quiet and inactive for the most part, rarely getting in the way or joining the conversation unless directly asked to. In fact, even right now, she was doing absolutely nothing but sitting on the sidelines as she waited for something to happen. That's not usually like her. The big sister that he knew was always the type to get involved with stuff and actively encouraged others so that nobody would be left out. He knew that the Mari in this new reality was going through issues, most likely due to blaming herself for what caused his apparent coma, but the fact that she couldn't even imagine herself acting normally even as Hikiko was, a bit sad. Sigh, he really has his work cut out for him. How in the world was he going to go about this? He had no idea where to even begin to try to help Mari face the truth and get her to forgive herself. He knew he had to start somewhere. Despite the advantage of knowing that she thought it was her fault over what happened the night of the recital, he didn't really know how to approach it. The last time someone in his headspace tried to directly get him to acknowledge the truth, he sent them to black space and stabbed their guts out. He probably shouldn't go down that route. Although Omori had no doubts that Hikiko deeply cared for her little brother, he wasn't going to take that chance of finding out whether or not she's willing to murder him just to keep the truth hidden away. If Omori was willing to kill his own best friend over and over again, who's to say Hikiko didn't have it in her? Maybe as a last resort if things don't work out. If nothing else, he was willing to spend the next 4 years being killed repeatedly in her mind if it meant eventually waking her up to the truth. Might be good karma, make up for what he put his imaginary Basil through. Just have to deal with the forgiving herself part, which was admittedly going to be the hardest part. With that being said, what truth was exactly being hidden away here? In this reality, it didn't seem like she was repressing the truth about what happened during the night of the recital. In fact, she seemed to remember what happened pretty clearly, blaming herself for apparently grabbing his hand and pulling him down with her as she fell. If only something like that actually did happen in his world. He would have preferred having a guilty sister over a dead one, even if it meant costing him his own life. Back when he was suppressing the truth about Mari's murder, he had entirely convinced himself outside of headspace that she actually did hang herself. But on a conceptual level, Sonny still knew that it was his fault somehow for her death, blaming himself as the reason Mari died. He just didn't want to remember how directly involved his fault was at the time. If Hikiko was suppressing the truth about what happened, shouldn't Mari be in the same situation outside of headspace? Why didn't she convince herself that it was an accident and that her little brother somehow fell down the stairs by himself? Even deluding herself into thinking it was her fault for not being there to save him would be enough. Why still directly acknowledge what happened? Horizontal ellipsis. Unless that wasn't the truth that she was suppressing at all. Horizontal ellipsis. If she wasn't trying to forget about the stair incident during the night of the recital, then what? What else could she possibly be repressing about? That day was the day his life was ruined and the person most precious to him was taken away. It devastated him to the point of nearly losing his mind. He imagined that Mari had to feel the same way in this other reality. If that wasn't the truth she was trying to suppress, then Omori honestly couldn't think of anything else that she'd be hiding from herself. Horizontal ellipsis. Sigh, this was frustrating. The universe really did pick out the perfect punishment for him. Who said punishment was going to come easy? Horizontal ellipsis. It took him a bit to realize that Aubrey was staring at him while he was busy lost in his thoughts. Shaking his head clear, he looked up to Aubrey and asked, "Yes." She gave a cutesy smile. "I like it whenever you stare off into space sometimes. It gives me an excuse to admire your face for as long as I want." Omori awkwardly scratched his neck. "Okay." Aubrey was still as flirtatious towards him as ever. Sometimes Omori has to reel back a bit whenever she becomes this direct with him about her feelings. Actually, now that he thought about it again, why was the Aubrey in Hikiko's headspace flirting with him? If he remembered correctly, in his headspace, he had imagined his Aubrey to have romantic feelings for him because Sunny secretly had a crush on her ever since they became friends. He had wanted his feelings for her to be validated, but also kept things one-sided because he didn't want their relationship to change that drastically from the norm. Hikiko would have no reason to do that for him since this was her headspace. Unless, wow, you seriously went back to being distracted again even after you just noticed me. Aubrey pouted. Harud. Shaking his head clear again, he muttered embarrassingly, Sorry about that. Didn't mean to. Bad habits die hard." Aubrey giggled at his reaction. "It's fine. I was going to keep staring at you until you noticed me again, so I wouldn't have minded." "Was there something you needed, Captain Aubrey?" Omori asked, still keeping with the pirate motif of this adventure. Pointing over towards his sister, who was looking uncomfortable with herself as she stared off to the sea, Aubrey told him, "Quartermaster Hikiko looks like she's being moody again. She always gets like this whenever I keep you to myself for too long." Nudging him towards her, Aubrey commanded, "You should go keep her entertained so that she doesn't get lonely." "Oh," Omori hummed as he looked over to Hikiko. "It does seem like she's being antsy about something. All right. I'll call you if I need anything, First Mate Sunny." Aubrey cheerfully reassured him. Omori nodded before stepping over to go be next to his sister. When Hikiko noticed him approaching, her mood seemed to shift over from uncomfortable to happy in an instant. Smiling brightly, she greeted, "Sunny, did you need something?" Omori shook his head. "Aubrey noticed you were lonely, and you came by to keep me company." Hikiko giggled at this before bringing a hand around his shoulder and pulling him close. "Ah, you're so considerate." Hikiko continued staring out into the ocean, but this time with a content smile as she wrapped herself around him and laid her head on top of his. "It definitely seems like she's starved for close contact," Omori noted idly. He could sympathize with her. It always felt nice to have Mari in his headspace stay close to him when he felt like he needed her. In fact, it felt really calming and comfortable now, feeling the warmth of his sister hugging against his body again. Probably for the first time in years. Unlike outside of headspace, where his body was too numb to feel anything. In here, he could feel and touch everything again. Her steady breathing behind his back, her warm arms wrapped around his stomach, her tender and loving hug. Horizontal ellipsis. He didn't deserve to feel this content, being by her side. To enjoy the comfort provided by the sister he murdered. He wished the universe would stop dangling the unattainable fruit of his sister's love right in front of his face while he was on this mission to get her to face the truth and forgive herself. It was painful to be reminded of what he lost and could never get back. The sooner Omori helps this reality's Mari, the sooner he could finally die in peace. All that torture and suffering will finally be worth something in the end. Horizontal ellipsis. "Hey, Sunny," his sister called out softly. "Yeah, Ma. Ahem." He cleared his throat just in time to catch his mistake. "Hikiko, is something bothering you?" Hikiko asked, looking down on him with concern. "What makes you say that?" Omori looked up at her curiously. "You've been acting a bit weird ever since we found you at the beach." Hikiko pointed out. "You aren't your usual self." "Was that so? That's frustrating." He was doing his best to act as naturally as possible. In fact, he hasn't been acting all that different from how he usually acts. He hoped that would have been fine, but was the Sunny from her headspace a bit different? If so, how does Hikiko usually imagine him being? I guess I just have a lot of things on my mind," Omori said evasively. Hopefully, that would be a believable excuse. "Oh, like what?" Hikiko asked curiously, before smiling encouragingly. "You know that you don't have to deal with it by yourself. You can rely on me. I'm always willing to help. All it costs is your love. Omori stared at her a bit. She always does say that a lot in order to get him to open up about his feelings. Horizontal ellipsis. Sorry, Mari. Not this time. Thanks, sis. I'm fine for now, but I'll call you if it ever gets too serious. Omori reassured her with a soft smile. This seemed to placate her for now, as she happily hugged him tighter and continued staring out into sea. Meanwhile for him, he still had a lot of food for thought. They stayed close like this for a while, enjoying the beautiful scenery in front of them. Ah. The ocean is pink. Omori opened his eyes, waking up from the nap as he saw Kel staring at the sea from the side of the boat. He pulled himself up from Hikiko's embrace on him as she slowly began to wake up as well. Aubrey tiredly pulled her captain's hat up to uncover her eyes, blinking as she just woke up from her nap as well. Tiredly, she asked, What do you mean the ocean is pink? Kel turned to her and pointed out to the sea. I mean that the entire ocean is the color pink. The three of them got up from their spot as they all walked over to where Kel was standing, only to look out to the entire ocean in shock. Yes, it was indeed pink, just as Kel adequately described. What in the? Aubrey muttered in confusion. Why is the ocean suddenly pink? Oh, hey guys. Did you all sleep well? Basil called out from above. They all turned to look up at Basil as he cheerfully waved at them. Basil, were you awake this entire time? Aubrey asked loudly, causing Hiro to wake up in the background. Basil nodded. Yeah. Did you guys notice that the ocean is pink now? It's really neat. It happened a few minutes ago while I was keeping lookout. Basil, why didn't you wake us up to tell us what was going on? Aubrey frowned. Hiro rubbed his eyes clear as he came up to the group with a yawn. Hey guys, what's going on? Is something holy crap. The entire ocean is pink. Hiro jolted at the sight of the scene. Basil gave an apologetic smile. I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you guys earlier, but you all look so peaceful. I didn't want to disturb any of you. Aubrey gave a disappointed sigh before shaking her head as she smiled weakly at her innocent friend. It's fine. Keep up the good work, Navigator Basil. Aye, Captain. Basil cheered in high spirits before resuming his duties. So, Kel began curiously, the ocean is now pink. Wonder what that means. Hiro leaned over the side and looked at his reflection in the water. I guess it means we traveled a bit too far from home. Looking up to face Hikiko, he asked, You think we should turn back? Hikiko nodded at this. Probably. It's not safe to be out this far. Aubrey pouted at this. Turn back? Already. But we only just got started on our adventure. We haven't even found the mysterious island of Cockaigne yet. Hikiko went over to calm her down by rubbing the small captain's back. Oh, Aubrey. I know how excited you were to find it, but we're not even sure if it's real in the first place. It was only a story I read about, after all. Aubrey groaned disappointedly, and we built this entire boat and came all this way out too. I was really looking forward to eating the magical cakes and stuff. I can always just bake you a cake back at home, Aubrey. Hiro offered as consolidation. Yeah, but those cakes make me fat, Aubrey whined. Sweets that don't make you fat are sweets that are too good to be true, Aubrey. Hikiko imparted to the young girl with an apologetic smile. While this was going on, Omori noticed that Kel seemingly went missing while he wasn't paying attention. Looking around for the boy, Kel suddenly returned from inside the boat while holding a cooking ladle. Omori didn't say anything, even as Kel brought the ladle with him as he went to the side of the ship. I'm gonna see what it tastes like, Kel announced, bearing the same stupid grin he always had when he was about to do something really dumb. Before anyone could stop him, Kel had already reached into the water to fill the ladle before bringing it up to his lips. Aubrey grimaced as she watched Kel drink the seawater. Kel, ooh, why would you decide to do that? You are so gross. Hiro furrowed his brows as he began chastising his little brother. Kel, you shouldn't be drinking seawater. That's not healthy. The ocean is full of salt and bacteria, you could get sick. Kel, however, completely ignored the two of them as he blinked in shock from the taste of the ocean's water. Smacking his lips a couple of times, he announced neutrally to everyone, it's strawberry. Horizontal ellipsis. What? Aubrey said in a flat tone. Strawberry? What do you mean? Hiro asked confusedly. The water tastes exactly like strawberry juice, Kel repeated before finishing the entire ladle with a satisfied smile. It tastes really good, actually. Kel, stop lying. You're being weird, Aubrey accused with an irritated look. Kel got offended at this as he defended himself. I'm serious. Just taste it for yourself. I'm not lying. Scooping up another ladle full of pink seawater, he brought it up to hand it over to Aubrey. Aubrey looked at the ladle dubiously, even as she grabbed the ladle out of Kel's hand. With a bit of hesitation, she decided to bring a little bit of the water up to her lips and gave it a small taste. Smacking her lips for a bit, her eyes widened in shock before she decided to give it another taste. Then she suddenly poured the entire thing into her mouth and gulped it down. Oh my god, this tastes amazing. Aubrey smiled as she slurped her lips in satisfaction. Told you. Kel gave a cheeky smile. Walking over to Omori's side and scooping up another batch from the pink ocean, she brought the ladle up to Omori's face. Sonny, you have to drink this. It's delicious. Omori raised a skeptical eyebrow at the ladle, before shrugging as he let Aubrey give him a sip. Not like it was going to hurt him or anything. Horizontal ellipsis. Fruity. He gave a thumbs up, internally rating the drink as 8 out of 10 in his mind. Aubrey beamed up with excitement as she scooped up another batch and handed it to Hiro and Hikiko with an expectant look. After Hiro and Hikiko took their turns drinking the seawater, they too were pleasantly surprised by the strawberry taste. An entire ocean made out of strawberry juice. Hikiko muttered curiously as she smacked her lips and thought, what could it mean? What else could it mean? Aubrey gushed excitedly, think about it guys. An ocean that tastes like strawberry juice. Doesn't that mean we might be close to the legendary island of Cocaine? I think she might be right, Hiro hummed and thought, looking out into the ocean with inquisitive eyes. I never heard of a strawberry ocean before. Maybe the stories about that island were true after all. Right. Aubrey bounced excitedly, so that means we gotta keep moving forward. We just gotta. Can't we? Hiro looked over at Hikiko and shrugged. It's your call, Hikiko. I'm following your lead on this one. Kel chipped in his 2 cents. I think we should keep going too. If there's an ocean made out of strawberry flavor, then that means there's gotta be one made out of chocolate or vanilla too. Or even one made out of orange joe. EWW. Aubrey shuddered at the thought. I hope not. Only you would drink that disgusting stuff, Kel. Hey, orange joe tastes good. You just don't have the refined taste to appreciate it. Kel grunted. Aubrey turned to him with an annoyed, excuse you, I have plenty of refined taste. You're the one here that likes drinking caffeinated soda like some hyped up sociopath. Hiro pulled them apart by the scruff of their shirts as he tiredly admonished them, stop fighting already, you two. Don't you guys ever get tired of being at each other's throats all the time? Both Kel and Aubrey harumphed at each other as they turned in opposite directions. Hikiko looked out at the ocean with considerable thought, wondering what to do. Omori stood by her side as he waited for her judgment. Looking over to him, she asked, what do you think, Sonny? Do you want to turn back or keep going? Omori raised an eyebrow, wondering why she needed to ask him for his input. It wasn't like this was his adventure after all, since this was all entirely in Hikiko's mind. He nonchalantly shrugged, I don't mind either way. All he's really here for was to try to find a way to get her to face the truth. Maybe this island might be where she kept the truth hidden or something, assuming that her headspace worked on the same rules as his own. Hikiko hummed and thought, before saying, I guess if no one objects, we could keep going then. Yes. Aubrey cheered. Then as captain of this ship, I decree we keep going full speed ahead until we reach Cocaine Island. At least, that was supposed to be the plan. Everything got interrupted all of a sudden when the entire world started rumbling and shaking. The boat they were on was rocking back and forth, causing everyone to stumble and scream in shock. Everyone grabbed onto something. Hiro commanded, holding onto Kel as he wrapped an arm around a part of the boat. Aubrey and Omori latched onto Hikiko as she did the same, keeping the two of them close to her chest. Up above, Basil had no idea what was going on as he panicked and hugged the railing tightly for dear life. While this was going on, something huge had arisen from the strawberry ocean. A big giant mysterious object, poking through the ocean's surface as it caused waves to ripple around its location. Waves huge enough to nearly cover the boat itself. Eventually, the waves calmed down and the shaking stopped. Omori back during Kel's 12th birthday as a gift. Omori blinked a bit as he actually recognized this thing. It looked exactly like that one action figure that Kel owned, decorating one of the shelves in his house. The reason why Omori easily recognized it was because it was a toy he remembered buying together with Mari back during Kel's 12th birthday as a gift. Omori gave a quick glance over at Hikiko as she looked up at the action figure in shock and awe. So, even she has a habit of making up characters inspired by the stuff in real life. Omori couldn't help but feel that this was a bit excessive. Was that the right word here? Well, it's not like he was any better in that regard. Sort of reminded him of Pluto in his expanded form. After everything calmed down, Basil began shouting down a warning at them in a panicked tone. Guys, there's a giant robot standing right in front of the boat. Why yeah, we kinda figured that out already, Basil. Hiro shouted back obviously. Okay. Just wanted to let you guys know, Basil replied nervously. Who dares defile these sacred waters? The giant toy mecha spoke in an ominous voice. State your intentions, interlopers. Well, that was definitely not a welcoming greeting. Omori hesitantly placed his hand over to where he kept his steak knife hidden, preparing to use it if the situation calls for it. He was doing his best to keep the knife a secret from Hikiko, but if push comes to shove, he might need to use it to protect her if necessary. In any other normal situation, he was sure that a measly little steak knife couldn't possibly do anything to a being of this size. However, this wasn't the first time he fought a giant being before. If he could take down Pluto, expanded, with his friends back in his headspace, he should be able to deal with something like this as well. Probably, hopefully, horizontal ellipsis, maybe, Aubrey nervously quivered in place, intimidated by the size of this giant potential foe. She slowly stepped back a bit while reaching out to Hiro, whispering, Hiro, tag in for me? I don't want to be the leader anymore. Hiro nodded understandably and slapped her hand, switching places with the young girl as he stepped up to plate. Clearing his throat, he did his best to calm his nerves as he spoke loudly to the mecha. Dear giant sea robot, we come in peace. Meanwhile, Hikiko gathered the younger kids behind her as she stepped protectively in front of them with her arms out. If anything happens, get ready to run. Got it. Run where? We're in the middle of the ocean, Kel whispered back. Hikiko hissed frustratingly to herself. Right, shoot. We could all probably just jump into the water, but Aubrey gave a worried glance over to Omori. Sonny's afraid of drowning, isn't he? Omori awkwardly looked away. Actually, he got over his phobia of drowning a while back when he needed to travel the ocean to find all of his friends in the last resort. Not like he could just blurt that out though, right? Don't worry, I can probably think of a way out of this, Hikiko reassured them. The giant mecha leaned forward as it peered down at them closely with a discerning eye. State your identity. Hiro was doing his best to not let his fear show as he introduced them. My name is Hiro. These are my friends. Aubrey, Kel, Sunny, Hikiko, and the one on top is Basil. With a gulp, he attempted a charming smile as he asked, Can we know your name? I am Proteus, guardian of the Frigarian Sea, and loyal servant of Her Highness, the mecha announced, raising his trident in the air triumphantly before pointing it down on them. Why have you intruded on these waters, interlopers? Ah, Proteus. That was its name. $59.99 in stores, has the ability to glow in the dark when submerged in water and squirted it out of its mouth like a water gun. Horizontal ellipsis. Oh God, please don't tell him that something of this size could shoot water beams out of its mouth. Surely, his sister was not that inspired by the toy, was she? Hiro held his hands in a calming gesture. We're just a bunch of kids going on an adventure, Mr. Proteus, sir. We didn't mean to disturb or intrude your home or anything like that. Yeah, we're just trying to find the legendary island of Cocaine, Kel decided to add for some inane reason. Omori turned to give an incredulous glare at the boy, already predicting what was about to come next. Kel seemed put off by the angry look Omori was giving him. What? Was I not supposed to mention that? Cocaine. The giant toy mecha repeated slowly before his eye visors shifted the glow from yellow to a menacing red. Shifting to an attack stance, it screamed, "Invaders! You are invaders of Her Highness. Your crime shall not go unpunished." Oh wow, who didn't see that coming? Kel, why didn't you keep your mouth shut? Omori shouted angrily at the boy, "Now it's going to attack us." Oops, Kel mumbled, sweating in fear. "Guys, it's doing something with its mouth." Basil shouted down at them, frantically pointing at the robot as its mouth began glowing up with a bright energy. Oh wow, who didn't see that coming? Damn it, Mari, why did you have to imagine a giant toy robot? Omori took a deep breath, pushing his frustration and anger aside as he kept it to himself. Running up to Hiro and grabbing his pajamas to get his attention, Omori stated seriously, "We need to steer the boat away. Now." Hiro seemed a bit surprised to find him shouting commands, but nodded back as he prepared to hoist the sails up again. "Someone take the wheel and steer the boat." Hikiko jumped into action immediately, grabbing the steering wheel and turning it 180 degrees. The wind picked up at the best opportune moment, pushing the sails as the boat began turning around. They were already on a course to run away from the giant guardian robot as soon as possible. However, it seemed to be a fruitless endeavor. Proteus fired its water laser beam near the ship, the explosive force disturbing the waters as it caused giant waves to form and carried the boat with it. Despite their best attempts to regain control, it was only a small sailboat after all. A particularly nasty wave formed right beside them, and everyone knew that it was going to submerge the entire boat. "Brace!" Hiro shouted. Omori instinctively closed his eyes and held his breath as he felt the waters push him off the boat. For the next few seconds, he felt absolutely weightless. He could feel his body shifting and turning, tumbling all around with absolutely no regard for his safety. It was like the world was spinning out of control, the ocean covering his entire body. His eyes remained shut and he kept holding his breath, waiting for it to eventually be over. Horizontal ellipsis. When he felt his body stop spinning, he opened his eyes. In front of him, all he could see was darkness. Like an endless abyss was staring back at him. It reminded him of black space, in a way. Thank goodness he got over his fear of drowning. Otherwise, he wasn't sure if he could have stopped himself from freaking out right now. Shaking himself out of it, he shifted around to look upwards and was able to see 5 shadowy figures right on top of him as they floated in the middle of the pink ocean waters. There they are. Time to put his swimming skills to use again. Omori kept holding his breath as he began pushing himself up to the surface, paddling his feet as he swam. But then he felt one of his feet get caught by something, before he was suddenly pulled back down even further. Looking down to see what was pulling him down, his eyes bugged out when he saw what was below him. Omori felt his heart start beating rapidly, his instincts telling him to panic. 3 eyes. The dark abyss below stared back at him with 3 giant eyes. 2 left ones, 1 right. An oversized malicious grin formed right underneath them, like an eldritch abomination awakening under the deep ocean. Horizontal ellipsis. Okay, nope, never mind, he's freaking out. Omori struggled to pull away from the dark tendril wrapped around his feet, even as he desperately tried to unwrap it with his hands. When that didn't work, his second instinct was to pull his steak knife out and begin slashing away at the tendril in the hopes of cutting himself free. This managed to work, as the dark tendril began bleeding out and loosened its grip. Unfortunately, several more tendrils shot out from the abyss below and wrapped themselves to cover each of his limbs soon after. Omori pulled and pushed as best he could, struggling to get himself out of this horrifying predicament even as he stabbed and slashed at the dark tendrils surrounding him. The dark tendrils seemed to have a mind of its own, latching onto his wrist and twisting it back painfully. Omori muffled in pain as he lost grip of his knife. His only weapon began floating away from his grasp, and he was powerless to go after it as he was pulled further into its depths. The air escaped his lungs, making him struggle to breathe. Omori became afraid. This has never happened before. He's never lost control over a situation like this. Even when everything started stressing him out, Omori would always instinctively shut down his mind and force himself to go back to white space before anything could go wrong. His safe haven, where nothing ever went wrong. He doesn't have white space anymore. anymore, does he? This wasn't his dream. This wasn't his reality. This wasn't his imagination. He wondered if he could actually die like this. What a horrifying way to go. He could feel his consciousness slipping away. The pink light from the ocean's surface was starting to darken as his eyes struggled to keep itself open. Horizontal ellipsis. Well, he could imagine a worse way to die. Wasn't how he preferred to go out, but if that's how the cookie crumbles, maybe he wasn't cut out to save his sister after all. After all, he was completely worthless. All he ever did was be a burden to other people anyway. Nothing he did ever mattered. He just made things worse. If he couldn't even save himself, how was he supposed to help save his sister? He couldn't even stop himself from murdering her the first time around. Sorry, Mari. Your little brother failed you again before he could even get started. Worthless, worthless, worthless. Horizontal ellipsis. He felt someone grabbing onto his hand. Opening his eyes, he saw Hikiko right above him with a look of relief. The dark tendrils that covered his body seemed to vanish without him ever noticing. This scene was surprisingly familiar. He felt like he'd seen this before, a long time ago. This wasn't the first time his sister saved him from drowning, was it? Hikiko pulled him closer to her before hugging him tightly. I got you, Sonny. He could hear her whisper, I won't let you go. I won't ever let you go. He couldn't find the energy left within him to respond, already on his way to slipping unconscious. I won't let you go. I won't let you go. I won't let you go, Hikiko repeated over and over, hugging him close to her body like a lifeline. This was so frustrating. Always relying on his sister for everything. Why couldn't he ever do anything right by himself? Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. Hikiko found herself walking down a long hallway. She didn't exactly know where she was or what she was doing. She didn't even remember how she got here in the first place. All she knew was that she needed to find a way out of this hallway. Her little brother and her friends were waiting for her outside. They were supposed to be doing something important. God, why was this hallway so dark? She could barely see anything in front of her beyond a few feet. She kept her hand close to the walls, making sure not to get herself lost somehow. Damn it, where was she? How long had she been here? It felt like she'd been stuck walking down this hallway for hours now. When will this ever end? Suddenly, she was startled as she heard a noise skittering behind her. Quickly turning around, she backed herself to the wall as she tried to find what made the noise. But it was so dark, she couldn't see a thing. All she could do was stay frozen as she cautiously looked around, keeping her back against the wall. Horizontal ellipsis. Hikiko shifted uncomfortably, wondering if the noise was just her imagination. When the skittering didn't happen again, she hesitantly pulled herself away and resumed walking down the hall again. She needed to calm down and breathe. Letting her nerves get the better of her was not going to help her in this situation. She had to find a way out of here as soon as possible. It took a while before she eventually found a door appearing in her sight. Hopeful that it was an exit, she quickly got up to it as she entered inside. Instead of an exit, however, she found a room. A dining room, to be precise. A familiar dining room, as three figures sat at the dining table while in the middle of a conversation. Hikiko furrowed her brows as she stepped closer. Hello. Out of the three figures in the room, two of them were a blurry mess. It felt like trying to see through the static of a TV screen. Only one figure, she could properly make out clearly. A young girl, with long dark hair. Hikiko realized that she knew this girl. Mari, one of the blurry figures sitting across from the girl, started off. An older woman's voice. Your father and I have been discussing this for a while. We've decided that we should all move to a different town. What? The girl muttered in shock as she dropped her fork on the floor. We think it'll do the family some good. Get away from the memories of this place. An older man's voice spoke next, agreeing with his partner. It'll be a new fresh start for us. A new beginning. The older woman explained, sounding almost hopeful. For some reason, Hikiko felt sick to her stomach as she listened to this conversation. She really didn't want to be here. The younger girl stood up from her chair. You want us to move? Why? What in the world made you even consider doing that? Mari, please, calm down and try to understand your mother. The young girl slammed her hands down at the table. This is where we live. This is our home. This is Sunny's home. What about Sunny? How do you think Sunny would feel if he woke up tomorrow and found out we all left him behind? Mari, I didn't say that. We're not doing this because we want to leave Sunny. Listen to your mother, sweetheart. Hikiko really did not want to stay here, but for some reason, she couldn't get her legs to move. Mari, please. Sunny's accident affected all of us, especially me. He was my only son, and I'm just so tired of being reminded of what happened when I stay here. The young girl shouted back, what's going to happen to Sunny if we move away? How far are we moving? How am I supposed to visit Sunny anymore if we end up moving too far? Hikiko was starting to find it hard to breathe. She felt like there wasn't enough oxygen in the room. Mari, I'm just going to come out and say it. The older woman sighed. We're moving away so that we can move on from Sunny. We're not going to keep visiting him anymore. The young girl was stunned silent, slowly backing away from the table. Ever since the accident, all I could do was grieve and worry endlessly about him. But it's been a year now and he hasn't woken up since then. I know how hard it is for you to lose your little brother. God, it hurts me too to admit it, but there's nothing we can do for him anymore. Constantly worrying about him isn't going to make him wake up any sooner. If he ever wakes up at all, the older man mumbled depressingly. Hikiko leaned back against the wall, feeling her lose her sense of balance. She hated this. She hated this so much. I just want us to move on together, as a family. I want us to live a normal, healthy life again. The younger girl didn't stay to listen to another word. She was already running past Hikiko as she left through the door. Mari, wait. The moment the younger girl left the room, Hikiko felt like she could breathe again. She was gasping heavily as she pulled herself up from the wall, regaining her balance. The moment she found the ability to move again, she pulled out her jump rope and began attacking the two figures in front of her. She didn't know why, but she felt like she wanted to do it. Both figures vanished the moment her attack landed though, causing her to become immensely dissatisfied. Horizontal ellipsis. Shaking her head clear, she calmed herself down and pulled her jump rope back. Looking around the room, she clicked her tongue when she realized that she couldn't find the exit here. Knowing that there was nothing for her in this room, she left through the door she came in. Instead of a dark hallway, however, she found herself in a completely different location entirely. Hikiko stumbled inside as she looked around in confusion. It looked like a hospital room. In the middle was a bed where she saw her little brother was sleeping. A heartbeat monitor was steadily beeping right next to his head. Sunny. Hikiko cried out in worry as she ran over to him. Sitting right beside his bed, Hikiko saw the figure of that same young girl again from before. The girl was holding on to Sunny's hand as she looked down on him with a depressed frown. Hikiko came over to his other side before trying to shake him awake. Sunny, you have to wake up. We need to get out of here. Sunny did not respond. Hikiko paused, hesitantly pulling herself away as she looked over him again. Sunny. Hikiko called out softly. Sunny did not respond. Just then, one of the two static figures from before gently entered the room. Hikiko watched from afar as the figure sighed deeply before coming over to stand right beside the young girl. Mari, the voice of the older woman called out to her, putting a hand over her shoulder. Can we talk, sweetie? What's there to talk about? The girl replied emotionlessly, never once tearing her eyes away from Sunny. I know how you feel. I miss him too. We all do. The woman sighed tiredly, but we can't let our love for him consume us like this. Aren't you tired of living this way, obsessing over him like this, every single day? We'll never be able to move on like this. The girl didn't bother responding, ignoring the older woman as she held on to Sunny's hand tighter. The woman sighed again. Mari, please be reasonable. The girl finally looked away from Sunny for the first time as she stared at the woman. You two can move if you want, but I'm going to stay here. The woman shook his head disappointingly. Mari, we can't let you do that. You're only 16. I don't care. I'm not leaving him. With an aggravated sigh, the woman began raising his voice. Think about how I feel for a moment. Do you know how much it breaks my heart to see you like this? The girl tilted her head in confusion. Why should I care about how you feel? You're the one abandoning your own son. That is not true, Mari. I'm doing this so that we could all heal together as a family. The girl stayed silent for the longest time as she stared blankly at her mother. Don't make us force you, young lady. It's already hard enough on me to have to do this. Don't make it any harder than it has to be, the woman told her gently. This is what Sunny would want from us, to move on and try to live a normal life again. The girl closed her eyes in thought, before opening them again to say, if you take me from him, I'm going to kill myself. The woman stood still, shocked silent. Hikiko felt a massive feeling of gratification coming from within her. What did you just say? The woman whispered slowly. When you least expect it. When you stop paying attention. I'm going to end my life. You'll lose both of your children, and it'll all be your fault. The girl explained emotionlessly. How dare you say that? How could you threaten me with something like that? The older woman angrily shouted back indignantly. How do you think Sunny would feel if he heard you say something so cruel to your own mother? The girl shook her head coldly as she turned back to face Sunny again. Stay, don't stay. Move, don't move. I don't care what you do. You're not my mother anymore from this day forward. Are you seriously going to test me, young lady? The girl glared back with murderous eyes. Are you? The older woman flinched back under her gaze, seeming almost terrified. Just try it. The girl goaded. Do it. Use whatever power you have to force me. The only way you are getting me to leave is over my dead body. Mari. What happened to you? When did you become like this? The older woman began crying. The girl didn't bother responding. She turned back to face Sunny again as she held his hand. Hikiko knew that she'll never let go. The older woman sprinted away from her as she left a trail of tears. From that day onward, she never appeared in her life ever again. When she knew that she was alone again, the girl's facade became completely cracked as she started crying as well. She laid her face against Sunny's lap, stressfully pulling her hair as tears streamed down her face. Oh my god, what am I doing? What is wrong with me? Why did I just made my own mother cry. Looking up at Sunny, she sobbed out, Sunny, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I did that to her. I'm so sorry. Hikiko didn't understand why she was apologizing. This was good. Her mother was going to force her to leave him. Threatening her was the only way to stay by his side. She had to do it. She had to in order to be with him. Hikiko would have been willing to do far worse if it meant protecting her little brother. Horizontal ellipsis. Both Sunny and the girl disappeared in front of her eyes. Hikiko blinked in confusion, before looking around. Horizontal ellipsis. She seriously needed to get out of here. As she walked back to the door, a small object suddenly clattered onto the floor, gaining her notice. Looking back, she saw another piano key somehow found its way here. Turning around to pick it up, she examined the piano key in her hand curiously. What an odd place to end up finding it. Hikiko will need to be on the lookout for more of these while she tries to find a way out. Pocketing the piano key away, she turned back to leave through the door. Reaching out to the doorknob, she tried to turn it, only for it to end up being locked. Seriously, Hikiko huffed in frustration. She attempted again to try to open it, growing more and more forceful with each attempt. When that didn't work, she tried to kick the door down, and even shoulder slammed into it. The door refused to budge. Great, now what? Hikiko sighed. This was honestly starting to get really annoying. Horizontal ellipsis. Mari, Hikiko felt something whispering in her ear, causing her to freeze in terror. Mari, can we please practice for the recital together? Hikiko had a cold chill running up her spine as she nervously gulped, knowing that there was something behind her. Please, I want to spend more time with you. Don't turn around. Don't turn around. Whatever you do, just don't turn around. You're always so busy. I never get to see you anymore. Hikiko turned around. In the middle of the room, a three-eyed demon smiled at her. The moment she made eye contact, it instantly crawled towards her faster than anything she has ever seen move. She could barely let out a scream before it grabbed her throat. Omori's eye became wide open as he was startled awake. Blinking for a bit, it took him a moment to realize that he was awake again, back in his room. The sun was up, shining through the window. It was daytime. He turned over to see Mari was still in his bed with him, still asleep while holding onto him tightly. She had a serene look on her face, as if she was in a safe place in her dreams. Safe. Not in danger. Not in the ocean. Not in a dark hallway. Safe. Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. What in the world did he just witness? Was that her black space? Horizontal ellipsis. Oh dear God, Mari was worse off than he thought.